Hello, everyone, and sorry for that. We had a technical issue here and we couldn't jump instantly to our live today. Thank you so much for waiting. We are having the live, we didn't postpone it. If we would postpone something, we would definitely inform you. My name is Alina, and I'm an Education USA advisor. And today we are here together with you another interesting live. I'm more than sure that you already read the title and you are so excited for that. But I need to remind you that Education USA Virtual is doing monthly webinars, and for this month, we have more webinars that are coming. So there is a QR code on the screen that you can scan, and that will allow you to view the list of all the events that we have planned. There had been a webinar that has been postponed to August, and that was about TOEFL. So I highly encourage you to go on our website and to register for that. Submit again your questions, and you will be able to attend that webinar, ask your questions maybe in advance. Otherwise, you can also join that, and maybe you'll get some discount codes. Maybe you'll get some tips that will help you to navigate through the TOEFL. And by the way, TOEFL is doing some changes starting January 2026. And I'm more than sure that you want to know that in case if you are planning to take the test next year. Okay, so for today, you already have seen the title, and you already, I think, realized from the events that we have sent you in advance that we're going to talk a lot this month about the academic setting, about academic writing, about public speaking, about how a student should behave or should not behave when he or she would be in a U.S. campus, or when he or she would be accepted to a U.S. university, and what is the academic life about. So for that, we decided to invite directors of English language program. And so Tiffany Probasco, our invitee of today, is one of the directors of English language program of Rowan University. And I'm just going to give her the floor to introduce herself. And then we're going to switch to the presentation. Tiffany, if you can just give us some heads up about what the English language program actually means, and because students would get confused sometimes. They would be, okay, my English is sufficiently good, I already took some tests, why do I need to know about this English language program? So I think it's going to be very helpful and very interesting for them to just know a bit of the notions, and then we can jump to the presentation.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Probasco-Francis. I'm the director of the English language programs here at Rowan University. So, just to give a little bit of background about Rowan University before we get into what in the heck is English language programs. So, Rowan University has been around since 1923. And we are and the English language program has been around since the 70s. We have about 24,000 students, and we have a program that has 74 undergraduate programs, 51 graduate programs, and 4 doctoral programs, which includes 3 medical schools, a veterinary school. We have a beautiful campus that is about 45 minutes from Philadelphia and about 2 hours from New York City. So we are a wonderful positioned program, and we'd love to have you join us at some point. To say a little bit about the English language program. So, what are English language programs? So, what we want to do, even though you may have conversational English that's really great, or you just want to get better at your English language skills, that is what English language programs do. We help to support your understanding of English, your listening and speaking skills, your grammatical knowledge, and also your writing and academic writing knowledge. Academic writing in an English language setting is a lot different. Than it might be in your countries. So we want to make sure that you're going to be successful in an English language environment and reach or exceed the level of a native or a domestic student. So we have English language learners that come from a lot of different countries, international learners. We also have, because the US is very dynamic, we also have immigrant learners as well. So they may have just came to the US a few short months or even years ago and still would like to sharpen their English language skills. So when we say we're doing an English language program, it's specifically focused on getting your English language skills high enough to be successful in an academic program, particularly at Rowan University. Okay, Alina. I hope I answered that question. And then we can get into the presentation when Alina's ready. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to keep going. So just to talk about a couple of tips. So I have some slides which she'll add on to when she rejoins us in the live. So no worries. So the key, oh, hi, you're back. So we're ready to go into the presentation. So thanks so much. So I talked a little bit about Rowan University, a little bit about myself. So we can go on to the next slide. So, what I'm going to talk about today are because we're talking about speaking confidently in class, I want to first go to talk about the 4 P's that we're going to focus on today. So, preparation, practice, pay attention, and perfection. Go ahead to the next slide. So preparation. So you can see this person has a lot of books open, and that's the first part of preparation. Next slide, please. So when you're thinking about being prepared and to be confident in an English language class, you first want to read your syllabus or course plan. All right, so a syllabus is basically the contract or the outline of what you're going to learn in that class. It also includes some of the rules and regulations for the class. And so it's really important that you don't just take that piece of paper or view it on a screen, but that you really read it and really understand what the class that you're taking is going to require of you. So you also want to learn your instructor's name. I know a lot of times in the English language world, we just call everybody teacher, teacher this, teacher that, professor, professor, but really get to know maybe it's Professor Probasco or Professor Smith or whatever. You want to really learn your professor's name. Because they're also going to want to learn your name. So it also helps when you're having conversations to talk to your classmates by name. In the US, we have a variety of classroom settings. Some of them are lectures, some of them are smaller courses that have 18 students, 15 students. So it's really important to learn at least a few people's names if you're in a larger class, or at least in a smaller class, learn everybody's name. Just so that it's respectful to call people by their name. Then, when you're thinking about prepping for your classes as well, learn about the class materials. Read them at least 2 days before. We don't want to procrastinate when we're trying to be really engaging and speak confidently. We got to know what we're talking about, right? So try to read the day's materials at least 2 days before, and then write a couple questions that you might have about the readings or things that you've discussed in class previously, so that you can have something to prepare to speak about when you're in the class. And then the night before, you want to review what you've read and review the question that you want to ask. So preparation is really key. And the way you do that is by doing it over a couple of days, not a couple of hours before your class. And then look up any vocabulary or terms that pertain to the topic and begin to learn that vocabulary. So each course that you're in has a certain lexicon or vocabulary that is utilized. So once you start learning it and learning it for yourself, you can create a personal glossary for words and phrases that you can utilize when you're having your discussions. Okay, next slide, please. All right, and now we're going to talk about practice. Thanks so much. So, to practice, you want to rehearse with a friend or colleague. I see some people are in the chat chatting with each other, making jokes and saying hello. So, those are the great people that you can talk to when you are trying to practice to feel more confident in your classes. So, and write down some sentence starters. So, I think that, in my opinion, on the other hand, perhaps, is it possible that, what if? So, those are just a few that you could start with to think about how you want to engage. If you know what you're going to say and practice it, then you'll feel more confident talking in class. Then you want to practice using some pronunciations tools. Those of you who have iPhones, maybe you talk to Siri. Try talking to Siri in English, right? It might be funny to see if your pronunciation, see, I even messed up my own pronunciation there. But if you have pronunciation issues, those can be identified by practicing with Siri, right? Can she hear exactly what it is that you're asking or saying? And you can practice with that for free. Same with Alexa. You can practice your facial expression or the ways that you use your muscles by looking into a mirror and mirroring what you see and seeing if you're looking in the mirror and if you see the same as what you've noticed. And then listen to podcasts, TV or radio are also really great ways of starting to hear and practice. You can repeat those podcasts or TV shows or radio shows back to kind of relate to how you would utilize those words and phrases in class. Next slide. Pay attention. All right. So you want to anticipate a slowdown in the conversation where you can verbally or physically, as those students were, raise your hand to enter the conversation. A lot of students say, well, I just wait for the pause before I enter the conversation. If you wait for a pause, it's too late and it's really, really awkward. So instead, you want to listen for questions and raises in intonation. So, for example, if your instructor is saying, what do you think? So once you're getting to think, you should start to think, all right, I'm getting ready to enter. Sometimes I think about it if you're watching a relay race and someone passes the baton to someone else, right? You want to be ready. You don't start passing the baton right when you're up at that person, right? For those of you who have ever run track, right? You or watch the Olympics, right? You see that the other runner starts running and then puts the baton in the other runner's hand. That's the same thing when you're having a conversation or robust conversation in English. We want to prepare to enter the conversation. So I put little slashes, green slashes, about where you should think about starting, okay? You still start after the sentence, but you're ready right as soon as that sentence finishes. So if your teacher asks who's the central character in the story, you can then, when they're on character, the strong content word, then you can jump in after story, okay? And then you can also listen for a raise in intonation. Who's the central character in the story? Okay, so you know that there's something going up. So then that could be you coming in. And then listen for a dip or lower in intonation when the instructor is concluding a sentence. So this is why we use this type of rotor for this project. Notice my intonation went project, went down. So that means I'm ending a sentence, and that means that you could enter after that sentence. All right, next slide, please. All right, turn taking is a key component in having productive conversations. So, when you're thinking about in the previous slide about your instructor having a conversation with the entire class, this is more focused when you're having one on one conversations or group conversations with your classmates. So, when you're thinking about turn taking, again, you're anticipating the ending of someone's sentence with intonation, but you can also use other clues like grammar. Okay, so sentence structure, for example, I is going to be the subject, next is going to come the verb. So, you just know that you have to wait until the verb and the object or complement happens after the sentence in order to enter. Intonation, like we talked about on the previous slide, whether they're raising their tone or lowering their tone, will give you an indication of when you can enter. And then pragmatically, what comes next? So if your professor's speaking, it would be today we're going to talk about, you know that the topic is coming next. Or if someone says the typical hello, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Right? We have these typical ways of speaking when we're doing introductions, and we also have them in academic speaking and integrating into our classrooms. So we just have to wait and start to learn those different entry points. Next slide. And then when is a good time to jump in? So I have some examples of what would be a good time and when you want to wait a little bit. So the first one here is, what does the author mean in the title? Okay, we have a question, title, it went down, it went up in intonation. We know they're asking a question, so it's a good time to jump in with your answer. That's already been prepared. And then with yesterday, right, is a bad time to jump in, right? Why? Because they haven't completed their full sentence, so you don't want to jump in yet. You want to wait till they finish their verb and complement before you jump in. That's a grammatical note there. Then the other one, for the next day, I want you to read pages 1 through 5. And then you see your teacher is turning towards the board, right? You want to wait. Again, even though they finished their sentence grammatically, their body language is showing that they haven't completed their turn, right? So you want to wait until they've completed writing something on the board and have turned back around to face you before you enter the conversation. And then if your teacher is saying something like, what we can conclude is that the effort that we made was significant. Again, intonation going down, completed a full sentence. Now it's a good time to enter the conversation. Next slide, please. Perfection. Bullseye. Notice I crossed it out because there is no perfection here, right? Even native speakers of English have issues with when to enter and when to exit in a conversation academically. So don't worry about perfection, okay? Give yourself a goal for the class. So sometimes I advise students to say, hey, tell yourself that you're going to participate at least twice during a 1 hour class. And if you make that goal, excellent, right? For our super avid talkers, maybe you want to give yourself less of a goal, right? So that you have more time for others to participate. But definitely give yourself a goal for each time, and then feel good when you accomplish that goal of participation. Then also learn that you can always self correct. You make a mistake, you can say, what I meant to say was, or to your point, as a way of correcting yourself in an academic way. And then a bonus P that I added here is pace. Be sure to pace yourself. Sometimes we get nervous and we talk super fast, and instead we can slow down a bit, give ourselves some space when you have the floor, and then say what it is, give yourself enough time to think through what you want to say in English, and then enter the conversation. Next slide, please. So, final tips and takeaways. So, just remember to practice the 4 P's: preparation, read, think, and write questions prior to your classes. Practice with a friend or colleague, and practice with some of the technological tools that we have. And then you want to pay attention. Make sure that you pay attention to when to enter and not enter too soon. And don't wait for the pause. And then finally, don't worry about perfection. You are not going to be perfect because nobody is. And so you'll always be able to try again and enter again. Just give yourself some goals. Next slide. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope you've had some great tips. If you'd like to learn more about our program or join us in the fall, you can always find me at Probasco, my last name, at rowan.edu, or elp@rowan.edu.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
You're
Tiffany.
welcome.
Everything was so useful. I want to note one tip that is a very good one, specifically for me: talking too fast. And I think that this is a thing that I'm not sure if international students are dealing with that, but me specifically, I'm dealing with that so often. And maybe you can just give some tips on how to avoid that, or maybe on how to I don't know, to talk slower, because sometimes I'm afraid I'll lose my idea, and I'm sure that a lot of students are struggling with the same thing. What can you say?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I would say write your ideas down. Sometimes when you're having a lot of conversations happening at once, particularly in an academic setting, a lot of people are talking and you're like, oh, I have such a great idea, but somebody else jumped in. And so definitely write down your ideas, take a note. And then when it's your turn to talk, definitely like take a beat. You may think it's a lot longer than it actually is. So a lot of times you just take just a breath in and just slow down. Sometimes even kind of tapping yourself with the syllables might be helpful for you, just on the side, sneaky, so that you don't look strange to others, but just kind of, okay, I need to slow down what I'm saying so that people can understand you. Mm-hmm.
Of course, yeah, and it affects a lot the pronunciation. So,
Yes.
guys, try to be slow. No keyword things. If you have time, then they will need the paper to read on the paper what they wanted to say. So, I think it's also juggling with all these different things and tips and
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay,
Absolutely.
then we move to the Q&A session. You guys still have time to submit them in the chat, but we have some of them that we have received before the start of this webinar. You already know that for every webinar that we have on our, monthly, you can address your question in advance. There is a registration link that can redirect you to that column where you can submit your questions. So please do that. We really love this, and I think it's very helpful, especially for those who maybe didn't had that question before, and then they just were like, okay, I think I have the same thing, and I've got the answer. So yeah, submit your questions in advance. Okay, one of the first one was how to overcome shyness.
Ooh, yes, shyness is a really hard one. And I know some people feel super, super nervous in speaking, but it's one of those things that you just have to keep doing it. And so I say to just really give yourself incremental goals. So you may say, okay, I'm going to talk to one person, one stranger today, or someone who's next to me. I'm going to talk to them about a topic I know a lot about, right? So I would say just start out with really small goals for yourself that are manageable. whether it's talking to one person, whether it's raising your hand, whether it's asking for something that maybe you don't really need, but you're just going to ask because you want to use your language skills. So, you may ask for someone, can I use your eraser? You have an eraser in your bag, but you know how to say the word eraser. So just ask someone for one because it'll get you out of your comfort zone. So give yourself small goals and keep increasing those goals. And then, get a friend to go with you, maybe take a class or something with someone else that you know. So just giving yourself small goals and then maybe having a friend come with you to make you feel a little more confident.
I think that was also a thing that I wanted to suggest, joining all the clubs possible. I mean, not all of them, because of course quantity is not the key, but maybe those that are specifically interesting to you, or maybe there is an activity that you really enjoyed and that was a part of your extracurricular activity and that you can do on campus. That would be great. There you
Absolutely.
can meet a lot of like-minded individuals and you can do friends, and I think that that's also a great source.
Yes, yes, and we have hundreds and hundreds of clubs at Rowan University, and they are so welcoming. And if there's not a club that we have, you can always make your own
Yeah.
club. So we have a huge anime club, we have a huge cultural group clubs, chess club. So there's so many things that you can get into that maybe you don't necessarily have to speak that much, or you're just doing an activity so much, then you get over your shyness because you know people now. They're your friends, so you don't have to be shy.
Okay, the next question, and it's a bit similar, I think, to the previous one. How to be confident and stop doubting your answers. So here's about the
Mhm.
confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Is to really do that preparation piece that I talked about in the presentation. It's really important that you give yourself enough time to understand the content that you're using in your classes. So if you don't understand something that's going on in the class, your professors love to hear from you. I'm a previous professor. I'm still consider myself a professor. And I love it when students come to me and ask me questions. And we often, all of us, have to have office hours where students are able to come and ask questions. And a lot of times they also even have chat versions of Office Center. So office hours. So definitely utilize your professor's office hours. A lot of people think that, oh, I don't want to bother them. We are required to have them specifically to answer your questions. So definitely go to office hours if you don't understand something so you can be one on one with your professor. And then that will help you to gain a lot more confidence. And then definitely read through or listen to your lectures, so that you feel more confident and clear in what's being asked of you. And if at your institution, like we have at Rowan, you have a writing center, that there's a lot of, if you're worried about your academic writing or something like that, you can get help and feedback in the writing center from students who are just like you, maybe have already taken the class that you've taken. And it's usually most often is a free service. So definitely utilize those services that you have, read over your information, and attend office hours.
Awesome. I love the tips. I love them. Okay. A question that is actually related to your activity as professor. How can you express disagreement respectfully in an academic setting? That might be the first question. And then the second part, are there any effective listening techniques when listening to long lectures? I love the question.
Yeah. So to address the first question, absolutely, you can disagree respectfully in an academic setting. However, you want to remember that your professor has been doing their job for quite some time and has really, really become a leader in the field. And the reason why they're able to teach you is because they've done their research. So if you want to go against a professor, do yours. So do some research, and come in a respectful way of saying, instead of being combative with something like, well, you're wrong, right? Um, Come in with curiosity. I'm curious about, I read about this particular topic. Could you give me your thoughts on this particular topic, right? So you, and then share your thoughts after that you ask them. So that's a good way to like engage in a healthy dialogue and argument or disagreement with someone, is to first kind of hear them out, something that you're curious about or have a question about. Questions invite dialogue. Statements invite arguments, right? So if we say to someone, you are wrong, that's a statement. But if you say, could you tell me more about why you think that way? That's engaging with someone more to invite them into a conversation. So you can disagree, but I would recommend asking more questions and making less statements. And then for the, are there any effective listening techniques when listening to long lectures? Chunking. So chunking just means that you break it up into smaller parts. So instead of trying to listen to a lecture all the way through, maybe listen for about 3 minutes, take some notes, maybe rewind it 1 or 2 times, and then go to the next 3 minutes. It is a longer process, but the more that you do this kind of process, the faster you're going to get at understanding. Because what you're going to start to understand, as I kind of mentioned in briefly in the presentation, is that there are certain kind of exchanges that we have in academia. So you'll start to kind of note, oh, this is when they're going to say something important because they've kind of said a phrase or something that's familiar, or they've done a gesture or something like that. So you're actually kind of analyzing the lecture, and getting out of it and being able to take notes on it. So try not to listen to the whole thing at once if you can. If it's live, well, you kind of are in there. But if you have the opportunity to rewatch it and break it into smaller sections, that'll help you feel a little more like you can understand what's happening.
Perfect. And there have been two more questions that are related to public performance or to public speaking, and they are very similar. So, if you have any tips to get rid of fear to talk during classes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting rid of fear in classes is, you really have to, you gotta just jump off the ledge. You gotta jump off the ledge. I know it's scary, but really knowing what you're talking about and really listening for ways that you can jump in with your pre-made questions and ideas. But yeah, being fearful is actually a good thing. Um, Being fearful means that you actually care about the topic. Now, if it's making you so nervous that you can't even speak, that's a problem, right? But you want to get to have a little bit of a level of fear so that you're able to really think about what it is that you're about to say, and then share that with the rest of the class. So taking a breath, taking a deep breath, writing down what it is that you want to say beforehand, looking for opportunities to say what it is, giving yourself a little bit of a goal of like, okay, I'm just going to ask one question today. If I do that, I'm going to be okay. And then also with learning people's names, referring to people by name sometimes brings down the tension in the room. So if you agree or disagree with someone, if they first say their name, then they're like, oh, they're talking specifically to me. And then it becomes a one-on-one conversation as opposed to a whole classroom conversation. And that might bring it down a little bit. Um, Also, sit closer to the front in class. You might be fearful. If you sit in the back, you may notice that there's so many people. And also, you're going to have to project your voice further, which can make you nervous. But if you're sitting at the front of the class, most of the people are behind you, and it's just kind of you and the professor and the first people that are in the front row, you might feel like it's a smaller class, even though it might be a larger class.
That's a good one. And you cannot really see those others' reactions in the back, you know?
That's right. They're
So I think
behind you.
that's a really great tip. Yeah, we were avoiding in the school to stay in the front row. So that's a good one. Okay, we move to the questions that we've got in the chat. So one is from Margarita. Thank you for those useful and important tips. What do you think? How many times would be enough to spend for preparation? I'm not sure what preparation exactly, but maybe preparation for class or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it says we say like if you have an hour, a 3 hour or 3 credit class, you should prep about an hour a week for that class. Okay, so typically if you have a class maybe an hour, hour and a half, I would give yourself about 30 minutes prep time at least. It really depends on your proficiency in English. It also depends on your proficiency in that topic. Like for me, I'm not a math person. So whenever I have to do something with math, I need a lot of prep. So I give myself a couple of hours, maybe daily, to work on it because it's just an area that I'm weaker in. But on average, you want to give yourself a half an hour to an hour to focus on your class per week.
Okay, that's a good one.
Mhm.
The next is, I think, just a feedback. Thanks for tips, Miss Tiffany. Something to practice every day and develop a habit. I I
Great,
got
glad
you
to
here.
hear
Yes.
it.
The next one from Mekret. I feel that questions are asked in a different platform, unfortunately. I'm not sure what you meant here because we are answering the questions that the people have have asked in advance, and also the questions that you are submitting live. So we are trying to answer all of them. In case if you have some, I don't know, some questions or concerns, let us know. We'd be happy to assist you. And the last one is from Diamond Chess. How can we get used to use new vocabularies we learn in our speech? I know the words, but cannot use them in my speech well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that kind of making your own kind of glossary of the different words that you're learning, your new vocabulary. So let's say you just were in class, you now have like 4 or 5 new words, and then I would say to look those words up either in a paper dictionary or a digital version. I recommend Webster and use an English version, not maybe in your home country language version that is published in an English publisher. Okay. And then look up the words and the different forms of the words, and then think about how you could utilize it in a sentence. I'm not against translation when you're trying to learn new words, right? So definitely try to see how is there an equivalent to the word in your home language. If there is, try to use that word and just plug it into your sentence that you would say in your home language, and just start to get used to utilizing that word. Yeah. So give yourself, again, try to give yourself some goals. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's just like anything, you have to practice and you got to give yourself, we don't, I've run a marathon, I've run a couple marathons. I didn't run a marathon in a day, right? It took me a year and a half of training before I was able to run a marathon. So you definitely have to give yourself little steps, little steps. You want to say, okay, I'm going to use 3 of the words that I have on my vocabulary list in this next class. I'm going to do it. I don't know how, but I'm going to use this word. And you'll find ways. You'll find ways to move it in. And if you tell your professor or other classmates that you're trying to use the word, they'll help you. Like they'll be like, this might be a good place to use your word. Those types of things. So definitely give yourself some small goals of using the word, translate it, make sure that you really understand the meaning and the different meanings of context, and then let other people know what you're doing because they might help you. to actually utilize the word as well.
Thank you. The one more from Margarita, and it seems that we have another overthinker here. We got you
That's
here.
okay.
What could I do if I'm thinking constantly about my mistakes and what I'm speaking about during the speech and it is disturbing me?
Hmm. Yeah, I know this might sound crazy. Make the mistake. Oh no, make the mistake and see what happens. Sometimes just doing the thing that you fear most and realizing you survived it makes you feel more comfortable. So you're like, I kind of know this word. I'm not sure what this word is. You can also preface it, right? So you're like, I'm thinking about my mistake. You can say that. You can say, okay, I'm trying to share right now. I want to say something. The word is, territory, and I keep saying tyrannory, and I just can't say the word right? So sometimes just saying that you're frustrated about being able to say a word and saying it out loud, it's your darkest, deepest fear. And guess what? You're going to survive it. So I say, make the mistake. Make the mistake. That's the ways that we get better at anything, is that we make mistakes. And you would give grace to other people when they make mistakes. Why wouldn't we give you grace when you make mistakes?
Thank you. And there is one more,
Ooh.
difficulty finding the right words when talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that is a question. I guess yes. Or
Yeah.
affirmation.
That's okay. Yeah, sometimes you might have difficulty finding the right words in talking. And sometimes you might have to switch back to your home language. And sometimes we might be able to understand in context. So you have the rest of the words set out all in a row, and then you switch to your language for that one word you just can't find, and we're like, is this what you mean? Sounds like. And you're like, yes, that's the word, right? So just attempt, just attempt to say the word. And if you're trying, say it in your home language, if that's the first thing that's available to you linguistically. And then the person that we say in linguistic interlocutor, but the person that you're talking to can help support you in figuring out what that actual word is. So don't. It happens to all of us. I'm a second language speaker of Spanish. I say sometimes when I'm talking each day. So if there's a word I don't know, it's going to switch to English. Please forgive me. And then I learn new words that way. So just being open to, it's okay if you have difficulty and have to slip into your native language, and let the person that you're talking to or the group of people that you're talking to help, because it helps them learn too.
Awesome. So I think we're done with all the questions. I really hope that no one is offended and we answered all of them. But you guys, let us know if you have some additional ones. You have our email on the website. Additionally, you have the help of your Education USA advisors. And if you don't know anyone from the Education USA centers in your country, you can locate them also on our website. And you can find the nearest Education USA center, and you can address to that Education USA advisor. I'm more than sure that they will assist you with and they will support you. Great. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. There have been a lot of tips that I'm going to be using also, because I'm also not excelling. I mean, I'm not a native speaker. So you guys, I really understand. I mean, for me, it's much easier because I'm doing this public speaking, and I cannot see you all. You can just see me. So it's kind of much easier, but I got you here. I wish you a lot of patience practicing that. And yes, and I was also thinking that a good tip for that might be also the preparation process for the standardized test or English proficiency test, because somehow they would get to learn a lot of academic words, and there will be a lot of vocabulary that is going to be improved. So at that moment, I guess they will already have a good level of English to communicate at the course or to practice it at the course. So starting earlier, that's also a tip,
Yeah.
starting from your high school. I think that's even much easier.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Tiffany, once again for the presentation, for your
Yeah.
expertise, and for explaining it so easy and in such a nice manner. Really appreciate. And you guys stay tuned for the rest of the events that we have planned for this month. We really appreciate your attendance today, and have a great one.